drink today. This is not a paid sponsorship, but it's my favorite energy drink. So
You're like the ghost energy drinks here. Today, I have this cookie with me. It's been sitting on my desk. It's called Sigma Snacks.
okay.
It's going to be a new upcoming guest on our podcast, but they're cookies that have caffeine in them.
Oh,
Not bad. Honestly, not bad. Like I didn't know if I would like it, and Megan and I ask a lot of people to like send us samples before we like introduce them to someone, because I'm like, I don't want to go introducing somebody who I think their food is bad, and to like an investor or a retailer or whatever. And I compared it to like Lenny and Larry's in my mind. I was like, okay, it's like kind of a protein cookie. Like, let's see if it's good, like in quotes, because it's not supposed to be insane. Actually really good. It grows on you. The chocolate one really grew on me. It was like chocolate cookie with chocolate chips and caffeine in it. And I'm eating them a lot now. I think you only sent me 6, so I have to save. I have this one on the desk. I'm supposed to save it. Anyways, Bryant, it's good to see you. Welcome back, everybody, to the All In podcast. I'm literally out of my mind today. Welcome back to my podcast, the Behind the Food podcast. I was listening to All In earlier. There you go, guys. It's a great podcast. Go listen to it. We interview food founders. Bryant, it's good to have you here today. Could you please tell the audience what it is you do? Because I think it's really cool.
Yeah, no, very excited to be here. Hello, everyone listening in. My name is Bryant Williams, the founder and creator of Hardcore Peanut Butter Spread Company. So we're actually developing the future of food. We've got a protein-packed peanut butter full of healthy ingredients, blueberries, coconut oil, and agave, super clean and delicious. And then we've also got some really amazing technology that I want to share more about with you later.
Dude, that's awesome. So how did you go about getting started in food? Like I was looking at your LinkedIn earlier because I figured I should do some research, and it looks like you've worked like in and around like the CPG industry for a while. So like what kind of led you there? And then what led you to starting your own thing?
Yeah, so I will try to give a buttoned up version of this because it starts going back to when I was at Purdue University. So by degree, I'm a chemical engineer. And, I was in school, was trying to apply for internships and stuff. And things started out, my first real opportunity, it wasn't necessarily food. It was refrigerators with Whirlpool. But then found an opportunity with a company called Hill's Pet Nutrition. And not a lot of folks know that Hill's is actually owned by Colgate-Palmolive. And so it's interesting that most of my background is in the pet food industry, kind of like mostly a supply chain focus. And so that's where I started to kind of like, I guess, cut my teeth, so to speak. Spent some time with them on the East Coast and in Kansas a little bit. Then I actually popped over to actual human food. So worked for General Mills for a little bit. Did some things with Green Giant before they sold it with B&G Foods. So that was a very interesting experience to be a part of the divestiture. And then once that happened, transitioned over to Nature Valley, then to a private equity pet food manufacturer called Phelps Pet Products, and then to Kalen Family Brands and out of here. So I've had more than 15 years of experience working on developing new items, managing teams. And so it was just kind of like, it was just like what I knew, granted, everybody has to eat, food is natural for all of us. We have our own experiences. But I just think for me that knowing how I knew how everyone else made things or produced things, that it gave me a huge leg up. And it just gave me the confidence knowing that like, hey, I know how to do this. I've been doing this for almost 2 decades, So I think we were working on a project once at work, actually interesting, a pet food project. And we used some very similar ingredients. And so I was like, hey, this would be really good, like in a human item. And I went into my kitchen, I mixed some things up in a bowl. I passed a few samples out to some friends who were actually kind of like entrepreneurs as well. And they're like, hey, dude, you really got something going on here. And so that's kind of the genesis, the beginning of everything, of building a brand and a product and finding suppliers and everything. So it's been a wild ride ever since.
That's really cool, man. So like kind of like inspiration from like what you do on your day job. And then like when did you quit your day job? Like when did you go all in on it, or do you still have a day job?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So actually October 3rd, so it's my birthday, October 3rd, 2024 was when I announced like, hey, I'm going all in, I'm focusing on this. And I think it's interesting that like it was kind of like a weird gift to myself, or at least like that's when I publicly announced it. When I was doing, my previous role as a research and development manager, you try to kind of like moonlight it or kind of do it on the side as long as you can. But for me, it was just like, this was like all that I thought about. I woke up, I thought about peanut butter. At night, I went to bed thinking about peanut butter. And I think, a number of different advisors and different folks have kind of like given me suggestions on how to like scale and build things or grow things. I would also say too, that there's no greater motivating force than like, having your back to a river where it's like, this is the only thing that's going to like put food on the plate or on the table. And I think for a number of different reasons that can be the strongest differentiator in a founder in terms of like the decisions that you make, the actions you take, the progress that you make. Because when you don't have nothing else, when your back is against the wall, you can listen to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or a number of other folks who have kind of started from the bottom and like rose up. Is that like you realize that like you had to do this, and it's not only just because like it was necessarily for your livelihood, but you believed in it so much that you wanted to see it happen, and to dedicate your time to something else, working on someone else's dream or vision. I just don't think that's the right way to do it. Now, it's a little bit different if maybe you've, like say you got like a part-time gig or you're doing something on the side consulting. But like for me, like I just believed in it so much that I had to go in on it. And it's what I cared about too. I just have so much passion in like just our product, our brand, and what we're trying to do for consumers.
Dude, that makes so much sense. I mean, I've been obviously in the same spot before, and it does get to a point where like all you do is you go to bed thinking about like the business, the product, like wake up, think about that. You go to work and you're like, what am I doing? Because in the beginning of No Baked, Megan quit her job essentially the first week. And then she walked out, that was funny.
Nice.
We were really young though, like we were 23, so it was a little different. But then I kept my job because I figured like, okay, like well, I'll keep mine. And No Baked wasn't even supposed to be my thing. It just ended up becoming this thing that like grew on me like slowly over time, similar to probably to how that worked for you. And then I was at work one day and I realized like I'd spent all day working on No Baked, not my job. And I was like, oh yeah,
that's the signal. Yeah.
I felt bad too. I was like, I can't stay here. And like, you can't continue to take money from these people and not care, because it wasn't even that I wasn't doing a good job. I mean, I think objectively I was probably doing a pretty good job at what I was doing at the time, but that's not really what matters if your like heart's not in it. And I went through a similar experience with No Baked itself recently, where I stepped away like full time because I was like, my heart's no longer in this. And I think you really got to like be like sleeping and breathing and eating like whatever it is you're doing, especially if it's a startup, especially in CPG, because it's going to be really hard. So
I just want to piggyback off of that because it's very much, it's a moment that is common in a lot of founders, where it's the my physics nerds out there, it's the moment of inertia where it's it's there, like there's a force that's like driving you to do this. And I don't know how often people get that or experience that, but obviously you have, and I know other founders have felt that as well. And you just believe in something so much where it's like, I think Mr. Beast had a good quote, like you keep doing something long enough, everybody thinks you're crazy until it works, and then you're a genius, and that's really what it is. If you said, hey, like I got this idea to, do this cookie dough, and I think we can get, grow it into like a massive scale. Everybody's like, what? That's crazy. Like, how would you do that? And then you look back on where you started and it's like, man, like you've come so far, you've made so much progress, you've grown so much. And there's just so much psychology that goes into that, because your mind, the way you view things, it just completely changes. And it's just so fulfilling that, most people in corporate America, I'd say if there's anybody listening kind of like on the edge of their seat, like trying to decide whether they want to do something, try to find a way to do that or build a plan, come up with a 6-month plan, because there's nothing more rewarding than being the, gravitational pull in towards launching something, into outer space. I mean, it's just, it's amazing.
It is amazing. And it's also something, like you said, where you do find a moment where you believe in it way more than everybody else. And everybody thinks you're crazy. Piggybacking off of that, did anybody think you were crazy when you were like, yeah, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to sell peanut butter? Like, that's what I'm doing.
I would say that, just along the way, you're going to have many people that kind of doubt you or question why are you doing something, like called the haters. And it's so important, like early on, like to just get the early day one believers, like the people who are like, they've seen you through the grit and the grind. I think for me, like towards the end, because I was like, well, you start running into bumps, like, especially like, like kind of like there's like a waning period of like, hey, this is taking a little bit longer than I expected, or like, maybe this isn't happening the way I want to. I think you're always going to have that, and you always just have to believe in yourself. That's one thing that a lot of people will say is, I always bet on yourself. And like, there's part of it too, like I've been in some relationships also where, not everybody believed in what I want to do. And, it's like, you got to choose, like, are these the right people that you need to be around? Which is a important part of being a startup founder as well, is that like, if you're not surrounding yourself with the right people are going to say, you're not going to do it. This isn't working. This is taking too long. This isn't fun. That's not, that's not the group that you need to be around, because it's ultimately, it's just going to it's going to tear you down as a person, but then also make the business kind of fail faster too. So I just think it's important to try to find those people, especially family, friends, anyone you can have that kind of can be your foundation, your supporting group. Definitely keep them close, because they're going to propel you as you continue to move forward.
Yeah, you have to find those people, and they're very hard to find. And I think I found that in the beginning, because you kind of believe in yourself way more than anyone else does. It's like, honestly, those people for us were a lot of our early customers, which is kind of funny. But it's like our families were like, whoa, it's crazy. And also the funnier thing about that for Megan is her parents are both entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Her dad has never worked for someone else ever.
Nice.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, technically, I guess as a contractor, but like, he's never had a job. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he had a job at some point, but like, it's been so many decades now that it's like, dude, like, you've literally never worked for someone else. And even he was like very doubtful at first. As I think any parent should be. Parents want to protect their kids, and like inherently your friend group wants to protect you too. They're like, I don't want to see you completely get like smoked out here, lose all your money. But the funny thing you said earlier is that, yeah, if you stick with something long enough, I've seen it's almost inevitable success. It's very strange. If you beat on the right thing long enough. Now, everybody don't mistake me for saying you should start just doing anything as much as you possibly can, and you'll succeed. You'll succeed to an extent, probably based on the product or the thing that you're doing. But almost inevitably, someone will succeed in some way, form, or fashion if they just stick with it for like 15 years. In CPG, that's what I've seen. Like, I have observed it in real life. Like, 15 years, you give it 15 years, like the most dumb ideas suddenly work. I think because you've like persistent founder, someone who cares, they're just pushing, and like they've also kind of probably observed the same thing, which is like, 15 years. I can name the brands too, like Dude Wipes, great example. 15 years. Who else? Manitoba Harvest, Mike Fada's brand. I think he was with it for 22 years. Will Nitz with IQ Bar is not that deep yet, but I feel like he's coming up on like a decade, and they're like really starting to gain traction. Jason Burke with New Primal.
Yeah.
I think he's like at 14 years or something. It's like, dude, you like, if you stick around long enough, and Jason's a good example because he's pivoted the business multiple times. Like, I think persistence really matters. So I love that you mentioned that, because it's true. So you're 1 year in technically right now, like full time in it. Are you guys on like any shelves yet? You mentioned like some things were like weren't happening as fast as you wanted them to. I've noticed with CPG for me, before I asked this question, we were a D2C brand, and then we had our own scoop shop. Well, we had our own scoop shops, then we were a D2C brand. Those things happen very quickly because it's a quick feedback loop. Like, there's nothing between you and the customer. Yeah. And the minute that we started trying to sell to grocery stores, I was telling investors like, yeah, man, we're going to go and we're going to do this, this, and this. And they're going to happen in the next 9 months. The 9 months turned into like 3 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Why is everybody moving so slow? Whether it be like Co-Man or the 3PL or especially the distributors. So what has that experience been like for you? Like in the last year while you've been full-timing it, what has not gone as quickly as you thought it would?
I would just say like, I think the things that take longer or you have to build up and present things the right way. Like there's certain accounts that I thought I would have had by now. And for whatever reason, we're not there yet, which is okay. And, there's some that, we've had, you'll get told yes, and you also get told no for a variety of different reasons. Where the yeses, it's like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Didn't think I would get this fast. And then the no's like, what do you mean? The data looks great. Like, do you not understand like what we're doing here? I would say that like, the accounts that we have, we're primarily it's with the National Co-op Group. We're in a few co-ops across the city and state. And then Hy-Vee been a phenomenal partner for us. And so, those are really just two good accounts like for early brands. Like your co-ops, they want to support local, they want to support you. They want you to go in, shake the hand, talk to the customers. Obviously, you're going to demo your butt off. And then Hy-Vee too, they have a local push or focus as well. And so I think like for any brand just starting out, like those are going to be like your really good counts where like they want to focus on the local or the independent or something that like they can build a story around and just say like, hey, this is made right here in Minnesota, or this is in whatever state, Wisconsin. I think those are the ones that you want to go after first. And, it's interesting here, like, we're here in Minnesota. So like, one of the largest retail chains is here as well. While I thought it'd be like, hey, like we'd be in there like automatically. It also takes time. And then also realizing too that like, just because you have the ability to get into a chain doesn't necessarily mean that, that's right for you, we'll put it that way, because there's different complexities. And some of those accounts, if you can't hit those, and if it drops, I mean, that could be the business right there. So I think that for us, like waiting longer, learning, understanding, like sales is also like part of a relationship, just like getting to know the buyer, continuing showing progress, continuing giving updates. And then also like just like your refinement, like improving your supply chain, improving your branding, building more sales, building more followers. There's a number of different ways you can do that. I think for our category, which is adjacent to yours too, I think it is interesting just seeing how different people have built their brands, and especially like in different time frames where, there's the Amazons, there's the social media platforms, there's the Google merchant stores, all these different things. I think it's really important to choose what works for you and what you can support, because the last thing you want to do is start throwing some money into something and all of a sudden you're going to have to back off of it and realize that this is an investment that you're going to have to be in for multiple years to, see a payback, or at least to get the meaningful results that you'd like. And so it's just for us being focused specifically here in our area and then building out a plan to tap into some other stores. I would say that, to this point, we've probably said no more than 100 different, retail store accounts just because we're not ready for them. And so as we're continuing growing, wanting to make sure that like when the opportunity comes, like, we're still engaging with them. And like, circling back to say, hey, now is the time where we can engage, where we've got the right team or the right funding or the right resources that can support something on the East Coast or West Coast. I think that's what's important for brands to keep in mind.
Yeah, so you guys are staying very regionally focused. And when you went to like start out, so say like day one, I don't know when day one was, like 2 years ago?
I would say 2023 when we first began selling.
Yeah. So you guys, obviously, you probably got it. When did you get a co-man? Like I'm assuming you made it yourself for a minute, like very small minute, and then you went and found a co-man. So like you went and found a co-man probably, and then when you got your first run in, did you have a plan for what to do with it, or like how did that process work for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, so this is interesting that, my experience, I used to work for two different co-packers. So like I kind of knew the co-man game, and I knew some of the pitfalls or challenges with different co-packers, and not everyone understands that not all co-packers are the same. What we were able to do was, we did some R&D in like the kitchen, but we were able to find a co-packer very early on that could do small minimum orders. And so then, it's like placing a bet. It's like, yeah, I think I can sell like 200 jars of peanut butter or something like that, whatever their MOQ was at the time. And, like thinking about like selling it online or doing events, and like, that took a little bit longer. There wasn't demand. So I had to create demand. I had to introduce the product to people. And obviously you learn as you go. But we started out with a co-packer, which was a little bit of a challenge because my first co-packer went out of business. And so then it was like kind of like a real business continuity moment where it's like, hey, what are we going to do? And it was again a bunch of points. Yeah.
How did you learn about that? Like how much of you, because you worked for Co-Man,
Yeah.
you've been around the industry, you probably knew like it is something that happens, but it's not like, oh, it won't happen to me. Like how did that happen? Like what was that like?
It was at a really tough, because this business was early, and it was a side hustle, was giving up a lot of weekends. It was just a real question if this was like meant to be, like was praying about it, going to church, and it was like, like God, like, hey, like, do you want me to do this? And, I think thankfully, thankfully when it happened, I continued to stay in touch with them, and they were able to point to me like a few different other groups to reach out to, but it was not fun. Because I was like, I don't know, like all these people are interested in my product. I don't know how I'm going to get it to them. And, there's always an option of making it ourselves. But the reality is that a lot of cottage kitchens are very hesitant to bring in different types of nut butters, primarily for the allergen risk. So certainly, like maybe you could have your own facility, you can find a kitchen somewhere, but it's very difficult to produce nut butter in some locations just because of the allergen risk. So a lot of times from early stage nut butter brands I've seen is that you almost have to start with the co-packer. At least that was our case. And that's kind of how I chose to start the business.
Yeah. No, you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, even in Nashville, like that was a big deal for us. And then also like when I ran our own facility up until the point where we shut it down last March, I had a lot of interest from people who were using nuts, and we did not want nuts in the facility.
Right.
And so it was like, there were a couple different products like Co-Man deals that we turned down because we were like, we just can't add like the allergen risk. Like it's impossible. Like, and also we were using like the same VMAGs. This may be like too nerdy for some people, but like, it's like, what are we gonna tear the entire thing down and like sanitize the shit out of it? And then like still now I have to add to my label. This was Megan's thing. She was like, we have to add to the label made in a facility with, made on the same line as. Like, what are we doing? Like, you can't do this. So yeah, I get that. Like that must have been really difficult. How did you find another Co-Man in a pinch?
Yeah. So, a lot of times as a founder, you're going to get in situations where you're just going to say to yourself, this is never going to happen again. And so, I reached out to the one that went out of business because they were trying to offload their assets. And I was like, well, I was like, hey, who's going to buy them? Because maybe they can produce our product. So, they were able to suggest a group kind of, that we should start by reaching out to. And eventually we were able to work with them. I would say, in total, I've spoken to maybe 8-9 different peanut butter co-packers. I just think it's important for everybody to always continue to evaluate your supply chain, always have flexibility. I've seen that in big companies. I've seen that in small companies, but we're able to develop a relationship with this group that's out in the West Coast, and they've been doing a phenomenal job for us. So I think we're actually getting ready to do, it might be our 4th PO with them coming up soon. And then obviously I have plans to do more in the future, but I think it's just that like we found them at the right time, and it was very urgent too, because holiday season was around the corner. This was late 2024. And it was like, hey, like, it's holiday season. There's a lot going on. Like, how can we do this? And then part of that too is also even like wrestling through a rebrand. But, we were able to find the right group. There always is in the back of my mind, like you can choose to like self-produce, like you can always open up your own facility. It's interesting too. I know a lot about VMAGs. You're probably using I think it's a BC 236 from Riser. Maybe not, but
I mean,
we can nerd out on that later.
Yeah, they're like used by everyone for everything. In my mind, as far as like food production equipment, if you're building a facility that's supposed to be like versatile, you go with like, and especially because Riser has really good service. Anyways, those are all like good things to have. And yeah, like you said, like you could make your own facility or build your own facility, but and I will say this to everyone who ever asks me for the rest of the time, I shut mine down. Not because, well, for 2 reasons. One, we were losing money. We would not have made money until we hit a certain volume that I like looked down the runway and I was like, we're not gonna hit that volume for a while. And when it became very obvious we weren't, because we assumed like overhead was stagnant, and it did not. Overhead continued to grow. as we grew. And even if we chose to automate, it's like you have to go raise the capital or like basically get the loan to get the equipment. So you could automate away jobs, and then you just end up in the same sort of spot with like a more fixed overhead, and it's very large. And so I was like, okay, this is going to be money losing pit for a while. Like, I don't like that. And then for me personally, I just didn't want to run it. Like, I ran it for over 2 years, through 2 moves, like moving the entire facility. It was terrible. As we grew, and I was working like 80 hours a week. I was also still selling too. So I would leave. Anytime I left that facility, I was going to like a trade show. And mind you, I have like 2 kids,
Yeah.
you know, and Megan, and like I never saw them. And Megan was working all the time too. So like I was like, I'd like to see my family again. Eventually our facility was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I live in Nashville at the time. It's a 3-hour drive. So I was like gone half the week. It was rough. So it's like whenever someone talks about self-producing, I'm like, you have to be like in it, and you also have to be dedicated to the idea of what that exit looks like for you, because you're probably going to sell private equity. You know this because you worked for one of them. You're building a co-man business at that point. You're not building a branded business. I've even met people who have big branded businesses, but they run their own facility. They're doing like as much co-man work, or if not more. And it's just a different beast. It's very time consuming. I think the people that are getting into it right now, I've met a lot of founders who are founders of brands who are buying co-man at the moment. Kudos to them. I think it's awesome. I also think you just have to be like dedicated, potentially not have a family. potentially be willing to like just sell your soul for a few years.
It takes a lot. I'll just briefly say, when I was in operations manufacturing, so like, you know, when I was in Kansas, I ran second shift for it was about 1.5 years. And you know, new to the location, didn't know anybody, brand new facility, brand new team leader, like still like mostly fresh out of college. So like, I mean, I think most of the team members there in Kansas, like, yeah, Bryant was pretty raw. Bryant, he was smart, but like he didn't know a lot of things. And, you know, obviously, like, you know, you're going to make some mistakes along the way, but like, I mean, it's really tough, especially like depending on the product that you were making. And, you know, I came into General Mills with a little bit more experience when I was with them, leading the first shift for Green Giant. And then at least that was first shift. So I had somewhat of a normal life. I think it was like 6 a.m. to like 2 p.m. were like the set hours. But then, you know, you get there at like 5 in the morning, and then you leave at like 3:30. And that's normal. And then it became like, it was a 24/7 facility. You know, then we would do 12s. And then I had this like rapid rotating shift where I'd like work 12 hours in the day, then 12 hours at night, and bounce back and forth. But I mean, you know, when you're 24/7 production, I mean, there's always something going on. So, and you've got to find a way to support it, especially when, you know, when you're in charge, is that like, you know, if something breaks, okay, like how do you fix it? And yeah,
the breakage thing, the fact that we were so small, like, mind you, I was not running multiple shifts. Like I was running for the most part, like 10 hours a day. At the end, about 10 hours a day, sometimes a little more. And we run like 6 days a week. We broke so many things, and only because, like, you know, I mean, I trained people the best I could, but there would be like small mistakes that would compound, and I'd be like, we're going to introduce a new SOP, I guess, like, here we go. And it always felt strange because it was like, I think that's sort of how this business is. And there's someone who's on our board today, is an advisor of mine, and he had worked in the industry for years. One of his last jobs was at a co-man as their chief operating officer, and then now he's the CEO of like a farm, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
big pivot for him. But like, I would ask him, like, dude, like, what is this normal? And he's like, yeah, it's completely normal.
Yeah,
like you opened up a brand new plant. Like, he had opened up plants before, and he was like, you will find, especially in a new line, like, there are things that you probably didn't think of, and you just simply have to accept that the first 6 months, like, a lot of things will probably go wrong, and you have to adapt to them quickly, or you're bad at your job. And I was just like, okay, like, that makes sense. So yeah, for me, and I think for a lot of other people, it's like, it's just like a big lift that you can be really good at, and I think I was very good at it. considering all things considered. It's like I don't have any background in manufacturing. I would argue that building our fulfillment and production operation for D2C during the pandemic was like my introduction to manufacturing, but this was like its scale is different. And I think for it, you just have to be the person that's going to like learn quickly. Like you said, you were right out of college. Honestly, those people are probably the best at that job. That's why they hire them. Because like it's like, hey man, keep your like brain open to new ideas and learn very quickly, like as quick as you can.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. So fast forward to today, you said you guys are in some co-ops. You're in Hy-Vee, love Hy-Vee. They're great working with local brands. Do you guys have a plan of like growing distribution in your local area? Do you just like drive around, talk to new retailers? Like what's the thing that you do on like the weekly basis that you're doing to, I guess, grow distribution, not just sales?
That's a good question. So we do have a local distributor that also has a sales leg too. So it's kind of like, I attack it from one angle, they attack it from another. So there's a number of like really good local stores and chains that we want to get into. Like if we can just like dominate and control and be like the go-to health and wellness peanut butter here in Minnesota, like as a grassroots movement, I think that's going to be like one of the best things for us, especially when people see me. They see us at events, they see us at shows, presentation, listening to the podcast. I think, just having our product available so people can try it, especially locally, I think is going to be a big boost for us. And then, so that's kind of like the ongoing, never ending, continuous phase as we're looking at other like retail chains. So we do have some opportunities, some regional folks out in the West Coast, out in the East Coast, particularly looking towards the West Coast more, where our healthy, clean label ingredients kind of identifies a little bit more with that audience. I would say at the same time too that we have to be ready to pull that trigger with that group too, because while a big portion of our customer base is out of there, the West Coast is a little bit more expensive, and trying to find a way to support that being out here in Minnesota, it's going to get tricky. Trying to find the right resources.
You mentioned that your co-man is out there though, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So at least the logistics costs will be low.
Oh, for sure. They we were last time we were out there. It was Expo West timeframe. So yeah, early 2025. Was out there visiting with folks. So I got a chance to catch up with them. But, I think, for us, having them out there and then also like having our base out here too, it can give like some very long-term like images of like, how do you want to like build your team too? Or it's like, hey, like, if we're looking, just hypothetically, if we're looking somebody for an X role or like, somebody who's done other startup work, like it would be great to have like a partner out in that region too, because not only they're boots on the ground, but they kind of have a feel or perspective on what that culture is like. I can tell you what Minnesota is like all day, and I can relate to what the West Coast is like, but it's very different from actually being in it. So
yeah, I think if you're in it every day, it makes it easier to sell locally. Like when I started grocery for me personally, I went out and I was like, okay, I know these are the local grocery stores. And I had a friend who worked at a local distributor who gave me like a list. Yeah. And I just walked in and was like, where's the manager?
Yeah.
Like a traditional Karen. But it worked really well. And actually some of those people that bought our product during that time frame is January of 2022. They're still some of my like best friends in CPG. Yeah. One of them works for and what is that broker? They're like every Unify show. There's thousands of them. What is Greenspan? Greenspan. Yep. And he used to be a store manager of a local independent. And then like another one of them, I just saw them at a Unify show. It's really cool to see them. It's like wow. And then another one was actually in Chicago. And he works at a different grocery store now, but like still is like in store management. And it's just good to see those people after like so many years. But what I realized was I was like, if you just go out, I did it in Nashville and then I did it in Chicago. Chicago, because there's just so many local stores. And because the first store that ever bought our product on accident was Standard Market, which is in Westmont, Illinois, which is outside of Chicago. And we went up there to do a demo in like January, February of 2022, right before our second kid was born. I remember because Megan was like super pregnant. And it was a very deep winter in Chicago. It's hard. It's very hard to forget that kind of cold. But yeah, like that was kind of like my plan. I vibe with what you're doing because it's like you do have a little bit more of an edge where you're from, and
Yeah.
you know where those stores are. You know how to relate to people. You can hand deliver orders if you have to. Um, yeah, man. I mean, like that's like what it takes to get started. You also mentioned doing festivals. So like, what does that look like for you guys? Like, are you going out and like trying to sell at like farmers markets, or like, are you mostly doing like sampling? Have you guys sampled at any gyms? I feel like that's like the first thing I would think of if I was selling your thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I will say this, and like this has like always been like my vision for any really, I think no matter what stage you're in, I think this is an effective strategy, is you can always be like this big behemoth brand company, but if you're always able to just like kind of seem like you're authentic, you're personal, you can approach people. For us, when we do pop-ups, I mean, one, it's just a great marketing opportunity. Like, I mean, we'll sell product, but like I really do it for the marketing, for the content, for the visibility, to be in touch with consumers, to be engaged with them. It's almost like running a political campaign, if you will, literally like the grassroots movement. And so like the same way you can kind of think about this from a D2C perspective, where you track views, impressions, reaches. The same thing happens from an event, but I think the reach or the view or the contact at an event is much more valuable than that of one online. Maybe seeing a piece of content. Now, at the same time, too, it might not necessarily be your customer, but then you can, when you're at those events, you can take pictures, you can record things, do a funny skit or whatever, and then you can post it online too. So it's a great way to do content. It's a great way to engage with a new audience. We'll do breweries. There was actually one a month or two ago that we did. It was like a skateboard fest at a brewery, which like the branding of hardcore peanut butter and skateboards actually fits very well. So like those are some like the groups that we're engaging with. I was actually at what was the last one I was at? Like there's a summer festivals going on, like Southtown in Minnesota called Egan. So we've done those. And then like obviously like Christmas is like just right around the corner. So like there's things like popping up all over the place. Like there's Christmas at the courthouse. We've got this event that we're doing called Dayton's Project. We did the Vikings Museum last year. That was pretty awesome. And like they're fun events. And I think a big thing also too is that people miss is that like you just don't know who's going to be there. You might find like a buyer or a forager, or maybe somebody who's like, runs a store like in a different part of town, or like, hey, like their family is connected to somebody who can help support you. So I think it's just always a great way to get in front of people and always kind of come off as authentic and genuine versus just this big ominous brand or logo behind a screen.
I love that. I love it for so many reasons, but like that's always been like our mindset at No Bake. That's how we got started. Because we originally were targeting food service, it felt a little, I don't know, for some reason for me, it felt like more targeted at that. And the more I like learned about CPG, I was like, oh, the most successful people really get that. There's some killer brands out there that like just focus on that like local authentic feel, and on like the farmers market or the local event at the local museum or whatever it might be. And also people love when they get to meet the founder, get to meet you. And they're like, oh, this guy is a real person. He sells this real product. And like, this is a guy that I would buy something from. Like, heck yeah. And that's cool because like you said, like it's kind of like a political campaign. Like at a certain point you want to reach as many people as possible, but every time you make like one like individual killer customer, it's like that person turns into like this like just great thing for the brands. Tell their friends about it, they buy it for their friends, they buy it as a gift, they're an ambassador without even knowing it. And we had so many of those in the beginning. And I think that was key to like the success we had like slowly. But yeah, I love that, man. Like that's like spot on. So what's your guys' plan for growth from here? Like what is the plan for hardcore peanut butter?
Yeah, so a few things, and maybe I can tease at this a little bit. So, I mentioned at the start that we've got some unique technology that we're using. So, one of the most exciting things, and part of the reason why I'm so excited for what we're building is that, our goal is not only to produce the greatest health and tastiest peanut butter, health and wellness tasty peanut butter, but we're actually got something where we're looking to solve peanut allergies by using CRISPR technology. So that could be a big inflection point for us. So if for those that aren't familiar with CRISPR, CRISPR is a gene editing technology, and we're seeking government approval on a modification of a peanut that can potentially save, millions of lives. So getting peanut butter and peanuts back into schools, airplanes, and different things like that. So that's kind of like the real, the big picture of what we're going after. Producing the world's first ever allergen-free peanut butter. It's not here today. It's coming in the future. So want to keep hold on to that vision. And in the meanwhile, steadily continue to grow the brand and to get into different locations. So retail is one segment. We've got an opportunity for direct-to-consumer, specifically with a group with TikTok Shop. So that could be another springboard platform for us too. We're also engaged with the Department of Agriculture. We're looking to obtain some government contracts. There's an initial fulfillment that we're doing over the next few months, but we're hoping to win a few more contracts late this year, early next year. And again, learning a little bit more about how that program works. And then hopefully, we will chat about this some more too, doing some things with food service as well, because I think that could be pretty special for us also.
Yeah, man. I mean, food service is huge. If you guys obviously nail down technology like that, it becomes really big for food service actually, because a lot of restaurateurs are weird about allergens on the menu now. I have so many questions. How did you come about focusing on we're going to create an allergen-free peanut? And what is it in the peanut that you guys would use CRISPR to remove that makes it an allergen? I guess I've never thought about it before from chemical standpoint.
Yeah. So at a high level, for folks that have never heard of CRISPR-Cas9, it's the fanciest pair of biological scissors that you can ever discover or look up. But CRISPR is basically a gene editing technology, different from gene modification, but essentially you're able to go in and you're able to cut, edit, remove, or take out different parts of a cell that of any living organism to have a certain desired appearance or characteristic or behavior. So in particular with peanuts, there's a few specific proteins that cause that anaphylactic shock risk. So we're looking to just edit those out and inherently have the first ever allergen-free peanut. Now, there's clinical phase studies and testing and different things that will have to come along with it, as well as making sure that we're good with claims. I know I've got my lawyers in my ear yelling, risk all the time, which is accurate, right? Because the last thing that we want to do is make someone sick or harm someone. But I think the exciting thing is that we're able to reopen spaces where peanuts previously were not allowed. Or in the cases where peanuts are allowed, we're allowing it to make it safer for consumers and for parents. So eventually, I would say similar to what we've seen with A2 milk, where it's kind of becoming the dominant form of milk, or it's becoming a go-to default form. We believe the allergen-free peanut can be the same as well. So, I think seeing some of the early proof, because I learned about CRISPR back in 2016. One of my buddies in quality, he actually told me about it, and he's like, "Hey, this is going to change food forever." And I've always followed it, but now was kind of when the first real time that I realized hey, this could be a reality. And I even came up with the idea was that I had a cold LinkedIn outreach where I was working with some guys and they were saying, "Hey, we're scientists. We're trying to learn more about the food industry. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to build this peanut." And so I was like, whoa, this is pretty significant. There's an opportunity here. And so we were able to develop a relationship. But, besides that, there's just so much opportunity beyond peanut butter. When you think about cookies, you think about snack bars, candy, so on and so forth.
There's an infinite amount of things that would be used for. And it's interesting because I'd never thought of CRISPR as a thing that you could use to modify an allergen out of a food item, and now I'm in shock as you're saying this, because it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it will go through clinical trials as if it was a drug, I'm assuming, because you have to make sure that it's not going to actually cause anaphylactic shock in a person.
Yeah, so there's a number of different studies, and in particular it comes down to the claims. So while this is the goal, I relate to this when I worked at Colgate. Antibacterial hand soap. Shout out to Colgate. Still buying Palmolive. 99.9% effective. They don't go as far as to say 100. And as far as they know, it kills everything. And so, like, what is the right verbiage to communicate that without spending years in clinical trials, also making sure that no one's going to get hurt. We're going to have to craft that language carefully, but I think we can come up with a definition that we can communicate to consumers that they will understand that it is safer. But, if we did do the full like studies, and you can do studies till the cows come home. I mean, like forever, like till you reach the moon. But like, what gives us enough strength in a go-to-market claim standpoint that we can usher this out as a safer peanut?
Yeah, don't end up like Poppy.
No.
Or was it Olipop? Which one was it? I don't remember. It's one of them that just got sued for claims. Yeah, dude. That makes,
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
And I don't remember which one it is. It's one of the prebiotic sodas. Turns out it wasn't as prebiotic as they thought it was.
I think
trial lawyers will come up with anything, dude. They'll come up with any way to make money.
It was weird. I think they were trying to say, and again, as far as I know, so this is not, certain, but I think they were trying to say they were a healthier soda. I think there was some dispute there, but I don't know. And for what it's worth, I love Poppy. So,
look, guys, for what it's worth, you make a good product. No, I mean, they're getting sued because people are ridiculous. I tell people this all the time. I'm like, you think trial lawyers won't find a reason to sue something? They sued Tesla for paying Elon Musk, despite whatever you think about Elon, proceeded to take his money away, and then they re-voted as a group of shareholders, and they gave him his money again. And then they were like, no, you can't have your money. Stop. And then they tried to get like $4 billion or some wild shit from Tesla's shareholders because they filed the lawsuit. It's just like, dude, you guys, you're playing these weird mind games. You need to stop.
Yeah,
leave Poppy alone. I think it's Poppy. Now I have to Google it.
I think that's just, and it's weird. It's, society.
It was Poppy. It was Poppy.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a great product. I mean, they're not trying to cause anybody harm. I mean,
no, they're not trying to cause harm. That's why it's ridiculous. It's like, no, I doubt that they were attempting to like kill people or something. Like,
somebody knows they have money, and it's like, all right, how can we take it?
Yeah. Well, they saw the exit, and they were like, okay, this is liquid now. Coming for you. Yeah, that's wild, man. Cool. Well, okay. So like, is it like a lab that you're like basically like partnered with? Are you going to license the technology from them, or are you guys going to are you co-creating it like together?
Yeah. The lab, they own the technology, but you can think of us as the go-to-market strategy, and they're kind of our unique value proposition. So it's a symbiotic relationship, but it's really exciting because, and this is coming from my background as a chemical engineer, or, just being in school and anybody in research, where you've seen a lot of great, amazing ideas or just amazing products. And for whatever reason, they just don't take off from the ground. And I think that's kind of like just one of the saddest things you see sometimes, or like, hey, this is a great idea. Why is nobody like buying this or doing this? And, for a number of different reasons, it doesn't happen. And I didn't want this to be one of them. And I knew I had the background and skills to do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, like that's amazing. That gets me really excited because I know a lot of people who are allergic to peanuts. My kids go to school obviously now, and man, the peanut thing I did not realize was like as big of a deal until my kids started going to school, and then I was like, oh, yeah, that's a problem. And like one of my kids was in class. One of her friends is like super allergic to peanuts.
Yeah.
And yeah, she became like a really big fan of almond butter because I was like, you can have that.
Yeah.
You cannot have peanut butter or your friend might die.
It's crazy because I think we talked about this where like we are like the last real generation that got to enjoy peanuts and peanut butter the way it like was originally intended. And there's a not so distant future, which is pretty scary, where it's like, hey, like there's already an existing protein crisis and you've got all these different foods that we can't eat. Nobody's really coming up with a solution or a way to get them back in the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, it could be like, yeah, remember when people used to eat peanut butter? I already remember when like we used to have peanuts on planes. I mean, there's going to be more and more things like this where it's like, you remember when people used to go to movie theaters? Those things are starting to happen. And so, I think it's just going to be exciting for us to not only like obviously commercialize it, but just really make an impact on people's lives. For what it's worth, even with the major risk, Reese's peanut butter cup is still the #1 candy in America.
That's not surprising.
Yeah,
Peanut butter cups are the shit. So
right, right.
I would be disappointed in America if that wasn't still the number one candy. No, that's cool. That's awesome. I actually had no idea that was the case. Cool, man. Well, tell everybody where they can find you guys.
For
And where they
sure.
can on the journey on social media.
For sure. Check us out at Hardcore PB on Instagram, Facebook. We're on TikTok as well. Also follow me on LinkedIn, Bryant Williams. I'm on there. I post pretty often when we have like big events or things going on. And then, if you're looking for a healthy and delicious peanut butter, look at Hardcore Peanut Butter at hardcorepb.com. Blueberries are added, which are a great source of antioxidants. Coconut oil, which supports cognitive health. And agave is a natural plant-based sweetener. So grab a jar today.
Dude, I need to go get some of this peanut butter now. I'm like, what am I doing? Not having it for the recording. That's cool, man. Oh yeah, you also mentioned that there was going to be a rebrand. Did you guys already do the rebrand? Or
We did one. Yeah, we did one earlier this year, and we've got some things going on in the background. So it's just the right timing to kind of introduce that. So we'll figure out what that is, but we've got some things happening in the background. So always got something kind of cooking in the oven.
That's dope, man. I love that. Cool. Well, Bryant, this is great. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Everybody, if you're listening, please go check out Bryant's stuff. Go buy his peanut butter. Make it happen. And also, if you're a founder listening and you need access to capital, please hit me up. All right. Later, guys. All right. I'll stop the recording.
Okay. How was that?